and hope to, minimize the inconvenience.
Naturally so.
Yes, to everyone out there in Radio Land, a stranger here, as he introduced already, Inspector of Works for the department, and we're just here to give the public a little opening in terms of what's happening right now, in terms of the Federation and, the area, because, presently right now we have a drought season and it's really taking us by task right now, It's not so simple like how people look at it, and people need to be a little more proactive in terms of what they do when it comes to water, because it's very, very important. It's an essential service, and some people still, like I will say, it's still falling on deaf ears for some people. It's like sometimes they say, unless when you reach home, when you realize when you don't have it, that's when you realize why these guys really serious is what they're saying, because we don't have that water. And presently as we speak, I'll say blunt, we don't have water to supply anybody for 24 hours right now. So we have a serious schedule out now when it comes to rationing. So, we have to make some changes, some rapid changes. Some people will be suffering. It will impact some people in a different way, but people really have to understand. And I guess that's the only how they will get that message, or they will realize that what's really happening now as we speak.
That's interesting that you say that, because, typically I would turn my tap on. Even this morning when I was getting ready to get here, there was low water pressure, and that's one of the things that we keep hearing, even on our social media pages, why is my pressure low, etc. But you rightly said, we are in the middle of a drought. There is less water, and obviously you are doing your best to manage that resource, and you can't manage what you don't have. So thankfully we have it, we're doing our best to manage it, but still, the public has to play a part in that.
Definitely.
Some of the issues that we are addressing as we proceed in our discussion today.
Some of the issues, whatever the public really has in their minds. So we really want to open the lines up to the public and have that discourse with them, so we get their feedback on how we can assist them.
It's interesting that you say that as well. So again, the general public is invited to call in, and these gentlemen are here for roughly the next 25 minutes, so feel free to ask your questions. I've been seeing a lot of traffic on our internal communications lines, WhatsApp, etc., where it seems as though the public is now reporting those leaks in certain areas. They're telling you where they are.
Yes, this is very beneficial to us, because we don't have eyes all over, and we also have not yet at the point of having that automatic system where that smart system where leaks are, when there's a problem in the system, that it automatically goes to our headquarters, and then we know what to do. Right now everything is still very manual, so to have the public on our team in that regard is really useful.
Now, like I said, I've been seeing that traffic, and that's really definitely beneficial to you as well.
Well, adding to that, because of I'll say we at the peak of our dry season, the peak of it right now as we speak. So, we try to say, try to address every leak. So we want people to reach out to us at all times. You could put it on the page. You could even call the radio station, because somebody will be listening to the radio, and they will get to somebody who they know. But we have two numbers that you could call. We have our hotline number, which is 465-8000, or you could call 465-3070. Right. And somebody will reach out to one of the personals at the department. But right now, because of that peak time, we have to try to capture every leak that is out there right now, because the rainfall pattern that we used to have, it's not there anymore. And I tell people in the past, whether it's groundwater or surface water, all our water come from rainfall. That's the source. Presently, as we speak, we're not getting the amount of rain that we used to get over the past. Sometimes you might have some showers come down today, and people going to say, oh, you all had a lot of rain yesterday. I used to try to indicate people in terms of when they compare it to say a lot of rain. I say, listen at it. You look at College Street Gut and those areas. You see, the gut don't even run, they just running like the same normal. When you have a lot of rain, that's when you see them guts come down and them kind of things. And you could say, well, you really had some rainfall.
Right.
But the rain, when people measure it, because they don't know the way it usually be measured, we might have 0.2 for a whole month.
Yeah.
island. You
You
still
know-
have to supply water to
Exactly.
an entire island.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, the distribution of the rainfall also plays a part in that. You might have one day when it had a high intensity rainfall, but then you have 14 consecutive days of just traces or no rainfall at all. So although the total amount within the month seems like a high amount of rainfall, it's not evenly distributed as well.
I'm going to anticipate one of the comments that a caller might mention to you, or even a customer generally, which is, I know that you are in the midst of managing this dry spell that we're in. We're managing that scarce resource that we have. Why is it, in terms of that management, it seems that there are certain times when a community might be left without water for quote-unquote extended periods? How do we manage that?
Kurt, do you want to
Well, in that case, I could two scenarios, like say, I could call St. Peter's, I could call Keyon, because those two areas being affected, and for Keyon most of the years, over the years, Keyon being affected. And that's basically because the demand, you know, you have a lot of development, and you might have a tank built for a few years ago for just to supply 10,000 people. You might have 40,000 people there now. That's one, very important. And then, like as I said, the rainfall which we're not getting, where some month you'll have a wet month, you'll get 5 inches of rain, and then the next month you might just have 1 inch. So that water is not coming, so the demand is really, really higher than what we can supply. Now, to go forward from there, well, you know, as we speak, we're trying to get that new pump, that new well in Keyon, up and running. When we get that well up and running, that should be able to take care of Keyon and the well now to supply most of Keyon, or almost everybody in Keyon. And we could take that water from the surface now and send most of that. It's like a 70-30%, with 70% probably go to Keyon, 30 go to St. Peter's. So we could send more to St. Peter's. So St. Peter's would be a lot more comfortable. That would cushion them in that way. So that problem could solve in some way. So we have actually to dig more wells. We have to drill more wells around the island. And then, you know, that would help the situation.
We also have the construction of the desalination plant at Canada Estate, and we're still in the planning stage of the 2 million gallon per day desalination plant in Basti as well. So these are ways that we're trying to increase the supply in St. Kitts.
In terms of that, because I'm listening and I understand obviously that, well, you and I have spoken about it, Mikhail, that Keyon has been affected naturally, and we saw last weekend how St. Peter's was affected as well. When we talk about that and we talk about the well, basically to offset that deficit as you were, is it that we will still anticipate being in that period of no water, even for those communities? When are we going to return to 24/7? Is that even feasible in the next 3 to 6 months? Even in the Keyon community.
It's definitely a goal, and with anything else, problems are still possible. So there's no certainty for sure that we will get to that point for sure, but we're hoping that there's an improvement from where we are today for sure.
All right, you might notice that I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm playing it out.
We wouldn't say 6 months. We cannot say 6 months. But, you know, in the near future, we think that problem will be resolved.
Okay, great. Because as we talk about that period of, let's say, being without water, just to conserve the water, I wanted to underscore the importance of conserving water even when there is a top-up in supply, so to speak, because we might see a situation where we still have to go on with that rationing.
Right.
And you mentioned something very interesting, Mr. Carter. You mentioned that that period of rationing has been extended. Why don't you tell the public about that?
Well, before, we used to ration in certain areas, maybe about, now I may be honest, for like say maybe 10 years. Where you live in, you know that water go off every night. For about 10 years, you have the entire Birdrock, the entire Frigate Bay, the entire Bastille would be out of water every night, where some people in the rural area, the water don't go off at all. So now we have to push further now and go out, extend it to the rural area and turn it off. And not just from, we used to usually turn it off from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. at mornings. Now, it's so bad, so we have to go from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. at mornings now. Because we had to cut back, because to get those tanks and get those things replenished to full back up is not so simple. More people using water, so we we have to change the timing and do that adjustment.
And I would say to you, on the consumer side of things, that's when a little understanding and patience is still necessary, because I know for a fact that you work around the clock. We keep saying it. People don't necessarily see it because you're up before the crack of dawn.
Yep.
But you're out there working, you're addressing these issues. And so sometimes, I guess it's a little disconcerting to know that the public doesn't fully appreciate how hard the WSD is working when it seems as though complaints are all that are being funneled. Notwithstanding that, I know that you are working, and I know that the public does cooperate with you as best as they can in some situations. To your point about turning the water supply off in the rural areas, I was totally unaware of that. I'm certain some of our listeners were unaware of that as well. And now that we get to the point where we're seeing that, that might explain some of the conversations that I've been witnessing on social media, because that affects the rural areas, and we're understanding now that some people are actually asking, why is my water off? Now you're telling me that something's sort of new, so they weren't used to it before.
Right. Well, to be honest, some of the areas in the rural area, like say Mulfield, that's like over at Phillips areas and so. At times, sometimes we don't even turn the water off, just because, as I said, we cannot supply them for 24 hours anymore. The tank run empty before the even rationing time come. So when they say, oh, you all turn off, say 7 o'clock, but the water gone 5 or 6, it's because the tank run empty before that time. So the rationing is just to get the tanks filled back up to carry out their working day.
Right.
And then when people, most time when they go to sleep, that's when we try to turn it off that time. So you could have it full back up for that next day.
I think somebody's telling you they're out of water.
Yes.
I need to tell you that. This is all very interesting, because as I hear you talk, I can't help but state how dire the situation seems to be. And this is something that I suspect we're not necessarily seeing in people's observances of water conservation generally. And so what do we need to do to assist the water departments? I'm putting myself in the position of a consumer now. What do we need to do to help you do your job better for all of us?
Right. At the end of the day, we all manage water. Besides the Water Services Department, the citizens also have their role to play. And so there are different water efficient technologies and infrastructures that persons can implement in their homes. First of all, it's important that we check our leaks in our homes, the toilets and faucets. With regards to technologies, there are low-flow faucets that you can purchase, or the dual-push toilets that allows for one to dispose the liquid waste or the solid waste. It's important that you monitor your water usage as well. Call a plumber or water services department if there's any sudden spike in your usage or bills that you're not familiar with. It's important that we also monitor how we wash our cars, how we wash our dishes. All these aspects we can control within our homes to help mitigate and conserve water and protect the precious resource that is, water.
Absolutely. This is a water conservation ambassador right here.
Well, adding to that, irrigation. Irrigation is a key factor also, because most people want to see the lawn or the grass looking green and plush and them kind of stuff, but so they want to have that irrigation system on sometime during the daytime when the sun is hot. It's doing nothing, because where the water is supposed to penetrate, go down to the roots, so it's just going up. And the sunlight, everything just evaporate and take it away right away. Yep. So we always try to advise people to irrigate early in the morning or late in the evening. But presently, as we speak, we can't even accept irrigation right now because we don't have that water to waste. We don't have it.
And when I hear you say that again, it's very dire. If you want to talk to these gentlemen, they're here. You are welcome to call and ask any questions or raise any concerns that you might have, or even suggestions. We're open to it, definitely so. I hear you talk about that, and my mind goes to people in the agricultural sector and whether or not there are provisions for them. Perhaps you can't speak to that, but it does go to, what does it mean for them? Because we take water, I guess, for granted, generally speaking, and you rightly say it on your shirt, water is life. For those people, it is life. You're telling me that you can't even afford to allow irrigation now. What does that mean for people whose bread and butter is dependent on that? it's a dire
I'm sure there are
situation.
different agricultural techniques that they could practice as well, like mulching with regards to how the water is retained in the soil. That's a practice they could implement as well. I think there's also different drip technologies that they could also implement as farmers. And so there are ways to, it might not be ideal, but it is helpful to still produce a yield, a sufficient yield, using little less water.
Well, I definitely want to hear from the people who are using these conservation tips as well. So if you want to let us know what's going on with you, that would be great, because again, collaboration is what it's all about. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, I'm here listening to you already, water. I once used to work water department. And with the water, we build check for the past 20 years. And they follow back up for the past 20 years how many houses built. Where when the rain used to fall, those spots that those houses built, those water used to go straight to the ground because it was clean. Now the house take up that space. So when the water goes from that area to where? To the sea. Now if we start to build some catchment in the guts, instead of having all those water going to the sea, right? You cancel the gut. You make them like sloughs. So when the rain, the water soak down to the earth instead of running down the gut. We can try to eliminate all the water and start to educate people. And every house that built from today up, go back should use assistance and teach people how to deal with the water that falls. When you get the water is supposed to be proper use. You catch the water and you have the water to use. You got spouting and you got your system. But everybody just talking water. If we continue go the way we're going, how we will ever feel everybody purpose with water? We will never ever, because more and more you're building more and more houses. More and more people wasting more and more water. You go to bathroom, people flushing toilet. You know, how much water it takes to flush a toilet? A whole bucket of water. Just to want somebody to urine. So all that is water wasting. And we need to start to educate people. Just like a campaign and go around, ask for vote. Start a campaign to educate people in the community how to start to take a different look of water. That is really important for now.
Thank you so very much, sir. I appreciate it. So one of our veterans right there.
The caller made it's a viable option to utilize flood mitigation techniques and include it in the infrastructure, and you can now use that water, treat it, and then you could either use it for any potable or non-potable source. So it is a feasible option. Thank you.
Definitely so. And he also spoke to the change in behavior as well. And he's one of you. He's one of us, basically. He's a veteran. Mm-hmm. And so he knows exactly what he's talking about. So that was great to have that input. Mm-hmm. I remember, as I was listening to him, going to St. Thomas, I don't want to say how many decades ago, but going to St. Thomas when they had the, low rainfall, obviously. Mm-hmm. And I found it strange that the person that I was staying with took a bucket up. It was like when God opened the heavens. It was great. Bucket up on veranda, catching the water. And I thought, I was 8 years old at the time, and I thought, this is kind of strange. I understand that you need the water. This is kind of strange. Now I'm praying for God to open the heavens here so that I could do the same thing. Yeah. So it just says to you how we've taken that resource for granted, it seems. But there are things that we can do. I would suggest that maybe one of the reasons we're not doing them is because of the cost. And I guess when people begin to look at the cost of implementing these solutions now, they don't realize that it would save them in the future. I hear cisterns, which we've moved away from, which are still very beneficial.
Yeah.
Well, as you mentioned costs, as we move forward, in terms of desalination and those kind of stuff. I could say it because it's a must. To get that water, you have to use a lot of electricity. So in that case, water rates must go up. I can't say how much it would be go, how much percentage, because it's a very long time now since you had an increase in water rate in St. Kitts. So
yes, the current rate of $20 that we pay monthly domestically, apparently it's been that way since 2001.
yes,
So the past 20 years we've been
over 20 years.
paying a very low rate and expecting an improvement in the infrastructure and all these things that will be needed to improve the water supply and storage. So the rate isn't accompanied by the amount that we pay for water, definitely.
And those things go hand in hand, clearly, because if you need to upgrade the infrastructure to ensure that the supply is met, you can meet that demand. They have to go hand in hand. That's not a very palatable conversation for a
and
lot
it's
of people.
interesting because we could live without electricity, we could live without internet, but we
Right.
cannot live without water.
Right.
We pay a lot more for electricity and our internet than we do for water, which is a very precious resource.
Because over the years from rainfall, like as I said, because this is so detrimental now to us, and our aquifer haven't been adequately recharged the way how it's supposed to be recharged, because we presently over pumping the wells in a nutshell just to meet the demand that we have, and it's still that difficult to meet. We over pumping the wells where the wells supposed to get that rest and them kind of things. So we have to be very careful in what we do right now. So therefore, like we reach where you could call some of the wells, we reach that safe yield, you know. So we just can't go no more when it comes to that. So we have a well in Challengers, we have to shut it off because when you do the TDS in it is really high. We can't continue pumping that well, because if we do that to our aquifer, to get that aquifer is just like you're messing it up. It's like you're mixing that fresh water with that salt water.
Help me, I know you're with the terminology.
And to
TDS.
get right, to get that back, it can take years.
So there's more harm being done while
Exactly.
you're trying to
Right.
do good in the short term.
So all that ways the rationing and so could come in place and could do some little good for us.
You said TDS, terminology.
Yes.
For the listeners, what does that mean?
Total dissolved solids is the
Okay, so that ratio. You're going to give me a lesson, I realize.
Yeah.
You're going to come back and give me a lesson on everything that you do. Honestly, we have about 4 minutes left, so if anybody wants to call and say anything at all, you can do so. Okay, good day, caller. You're live.
Yes, Megan. You see, you have some wells in the Basset area that you build houses all around them. So those wells now no more usable for drinking. And I said to the water man already, those water can use to transport the water to the farms, to water the crops. And at the same time, with them water going to the earth, they will end up reach back to the aquifer, but it will also strain itself out, because the tree have to go through all these particles out. It will strain, go back to the aquifer. So you will have a revolving system. But with all the water is just sitting there, not using, and you want water to farm, you want water for this, you want water for that. That is something that we can look into, get some trucks and jack those water all the way by the factory. You have some pump right there for the health center that ain't using. That water could jack and put in the tank right there by the factory and use for the crops them. That water could use, and try to get back some of that same water will end up be using back to the aquifer. Because when you plant and take what water you're going to take, and as you say rightfully, the mulch, all those grass that cut in, when you cut the land and all over, those grass could turn into mulch, and farmers now plant it within them mulch. So you would take less water to get the plant and go. But you just have to educate people. You
Definitely, sir.
understand?
Sir, I apologize, but we are out of time, but we thank you so much for participating today, and feel free to call back the next time we're on air. It's a pleasure to hear your suggestions. We do appreciate it. I want to say thank you to my guests for joining me today on this edition of The Waterline. We have the Assistant Water Engineer, Mr. Landreth Mikhail Isaac. We also have Mr. Kurt Carty, Inspector of Works, and I am Jamie Morris, Communications Officer in the Ministry of Public Infrastructure at AL, saying thank you for joining us for this edition of The Waterline. Water is life. Every drop counts. Remember to conserve, and if you need more tips, follow us online at www.water.gov.kn, and we are also on Facebook at the St. Kitts Water Department. For now, bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Water is life, 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 life. Water is life, 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 life. Do just one thing.